So we've made sure that the frame is situated in the opening. We've made sure that the gaskets are tucked into the corners nicely. It looks like it's sitting where I want. So I went and got the quote-unquote dirty hardware, taking a look at the washer direction, and starting in the middle, I will just thread on what I can for the hardware. The reason I start in the middle is because those are usually the spots where I can just squeeze the frames together enough to get the hardware started. Most of the other bolts we're actually going to have to put a little clamp on it to squeeze the frame together. So we'll do it on the bottom, and once again on the top if I can. Yeah, lots of room. Alright, so we got them snugged up, and I have 2 gear wrenches. I only have metric gear wrenches, so it's, oops, wasn't in far enough. I use a 13 and an 11 for the small stuff, but that's what, 7/16 and 9/16. So that one just popped off. Get that one reset. So we'll just go ahead and snug those in a little bit. And you can actually see what happened right here when I was squeezing that together. That weather stripping came off the edge. As it's going together, it's really important to just pay attention. This is not a hard installation. There's nothing technical about it. You just have to make sure you're kind of keeping your eyes open. So basically I've got that snug, and I'm going to go and snug up where the latches attach as well. And the bolting is going to be done in multiple passes as we go along and get the hardware attached where we can, because what we're doing is we're sandwiching a fairly large gasket in against that bench weld. It's going to end up really, really super tight to make sure no water or wind can get through, but it does make the bolting go a little slow. So we've got those center points kind of clamped in with the hardware. And we're going to go ahead and just use a bar clamp to draw in that gasket to crush this frame, makes it a little easier on you. A good bar clamp is going to be necessary for the installation. If you've got an old rusty one, this finish is really very durable. We don't really need to worry about it at all. But what happens a lot of times as these age is that this cut will actually kind of get a lot of friction on the drive screw. Alright, so before the memory card ran out of space, I was just saying that you need to make sure that you put a drop of oil in between the pad and the drive screw on these, so that pad doesn't rotate with the drive screw and score the finish. Other than that, the powder coating is really, really tough, and you're not even going to mark it up by clamping. So what we'll do is we'll come up here, I'll put the round pad on the open part of the metal on the outside, and just squeeze it in. You can see how it advances on there. It doesn't take a ton of pressure, but it's more than your hand would put on there. And just get that set up and just go along one after another. What you're going to find, I'm not going to video doing the whole thing, is that I'm going to go around and do all of them except the corner. If you look at how far that one out is and see how that corner one is really, really super close, the corners have the most material to compress, so I leave them until the complete end of getting everything else tightened up, and then I usually can squeeze those in far enough to get the washer and nut on there. So I'm going to work on that. I've gone around and I've put all the middle bolts in, and I'm just going back now, like I said, and just hitting the corners. I've already done this one, squeeze this one in, so that now this and this are tight, so it's helping the clamp along. And once you get all the other nuts onto the studs, the corners actually fall into place easily. So just go in that order. So before putting the top corners in, we've done the bottom. I'm going to go ahead and slap the hinges on there. And now the hinges adjust up and down, a little bit side to side. They have an angle on them. We're not going to worry about any of that right now. All we're doing is just using them to help draw the frame into place. So I just put them on, and if you come around to the outside, you can see they go up and down. I pretty much just push them all the way to the top for right now. And get the nut started, and I'll snug it down. But not too much, because we're just going to be taking it off again. So you kind of go back and forth. This is where the gear wrenches really come nice. And when you're adjusting the outer panel, you're going to be doing this a number of times. So I do recommend snagging a gear wrench if you don't have one. So I did that there. We're going to do the other one right here, and then I'll plant the corner in place. Alright, so we have all of the nuts and washers in place, and all the washers are pointing the right way. And now we're just going to go around it in successive passes and just snug these in. There's really not going to be kind of a definitive stop, but if you look at how well it's crushed in and how well the gasket's pushed, you can kind of tell where it needs to go tighter. And as long as they're all fairly even as you go along, it'll be good. And before the process is completely finished, you'll probably go around and do this once again because the gasket will have squished in place a little more. Alright, so I've gone all around and snugged up all of the nuts on the inside. It's not a ton of force. We were just actually kind of trying to debate. It's probably only about maybe 4 to 7 foot-pounds or so. It's not a ton. I don't want anybody snapping studs off. You don't need to make sure that they're 100% just yet. You do that before the installation is finished. So the next thing up is to actually put the latch catches in place. You'll notice that there are lefts and rights. And there's also side to side too. I don't recommend taking apart both sets of windows at the same time because it might make it confusing to mix up hinges and latches and stuff because they are per side. The one with the shock ball stud goes towards the back of the truck on both sides. If you notice when I put this on here, there's actually no washer on the stud. And the reason for that is that since we're starting out with a new gasket, it's actually harder to compress. So those washers, over time, what you'll be able to do is actually take these things off and put a washer there, and it's consequently moved this latch that catches the window back a tiny little bit, so you can actually tighten the window if needed over time. You definitely don't need it right now, though. I've got it set so that is the correct size. The thing to note with these is that there's a tiny little bit of in and out just because it's an oversized hole, but there's up-down adjustment, and then these two screws that hold the latch go up-down this way. So there's in, out, up-down, and then up-down on the catch. And those are all the things that you're going to have to pay attention to as you're getting it adjusted to fit with the frame, which is the next step. So first off, we'll just bolt these in place and come back in a minute.